Mermaid. So I want to review a book. The book I want to review is this one, The Black Toad, West Country Witchcraft and Magic by Gemma Gary. Now, this is a book about basically English folk magic. So, excuse me, my cat is here wondering what I'm doing. I just started to pat her on the head a little bit. So, a lot of it, one of the reasons why books like this is so important is that while I really love Wicca, a lot of Wiccans seems to think that Wiccan style witchcraft is the by-all, end-all. And it's also what a witchcraft came from. That basically the kind of rituals you find in Wicca is exactly what they have always been. But these kind of traditions, like for example the ones described in this book, are older. And while some parts of Wicca are inspired by traditions like this, they also completely their own thing. Also, it's very interesting because these kinds of traditions are from a time when witchcraft was generally accepted as true. So it's basically mostly information gathered from black books and grimoires from a couple of centuries back until 60, 70 years back. So yes, it's not medieval magic, which usually have completely their own traditions, but it is basically folklore and folk magic. So let's have a look at the book itself. You have a contents here, where you have a foreword, an introduction, and power and preparation. Then you have the various chapters basically contains different types of spells, because most of this book are old spells. We have Mother Redcap, which is protections and defenses, and cures, charms, and protections against ailment, desires, and good fortune and vision. Then we have Mother Greencap, which is virtues of the trees, infusions of virtue, curative plant charms, protective plant charms for love, blackthorn blessing ash, land charms for animals. Then you have Mother Blackcap, which is curse magic and blasting, retaliation magic and counter blasting, weather witchcraft, circles of power, in league with the devil, and you have a bibliography and you have an index. So this is really interesting, these old spells, and for the most part I think it's a really good book. I have a problem with how it's written though, because the author, she tries to sound a little bit like language in those old grimoires. And here's the thing, I know that is how they spoke back in the day, but it's not because of the joy of hearing that old language that occultists read those old grimoires. Because if you're grown up with modern English, it's sort of a little bit difficult. So when trying to halfway adapt that in the book, I know probably for some people it sort of adds a mood to it. For me, it just makes it harder to read. So yeah, I also not sure I'm too fond of how she has done it with illustrations and photographs. Basically, she has the list of what everything is here. So when you find an illustration, let's just find one. There, we have an illustration. Then it doesn't say anywhere on the actual illustration page what it is. You have to see the page, which is numbered 22. Then you go down the list here, find page 22, and it is the Witch's Mill. That complicates things. I'm not fond of that, but really, these are things that are just nitpicky. There's a lot of great old spells here. Stackheart, And some of them are quite gruesome. Here's basically you take an oxen heart and you just stick it with as many nails and pins and stuff that you can possibly have, and you keep it in your house as a protection charm. Yeah. Some of these spells are definitely things that you can use. I've already used one of the spells in this book and it worked wonderfully. But do keep in mind that a lot of these spells are based around animal abuse. And there were very few ideas of basically being kind to animals, especially wild animals, in these times. The Christian idea that man is lord of the beasts has had a very negative effect on how we treat animals. So there's a lot of things like removing a toad's tongue while a toad is still alive. And I would definitely not recommend practicing that magic, at least not as is. Of course, things can be adapted. You can find a dead toad around that has died of natural causes. And yes, then I would if you find you're going to use a dead animal that you don't know exactly what died of, I would use gloves while handling it, and then you can do the spell with that. But I, in no way, shape, or form, condone actual cruelty to living animals. So yeah, but there's also a lot of other spells. It bases around plants and plants from dead animals and trees. And yeah, there's also a pretty interesting idea on circle casting here and why using a circle, because this is just about the time when a lot of Western ceremonial magic came into witchcraft. So you have circle casting, and one of the ideas of the circle casting is that it destroys the possibility that anything will end up in a way that you do not want. So yes, you have the element of protecting yourself. You don't have as much about the Wiccan idea of raising a cone of power as you have it. Casting a circle is there to have a space that's between the worlds. So it's not fully physical and it's not fully divine, but it's basically a between place, which is very important in this tradition. And it is also based around the idea of basically a circle being a barrier. So you see a lot of circles being used to basically keep something out, or basically you put a circle around a snake to keep it from attacking, or for example you take a puppet and you put a circle around it and by that binding somebody into an action. It's a very interesting use of a magical circle. All in all, this is a very interesting book. There's probably less practical things here, though there's definitely a lot of these spells that can be quite useful to this day, as it is an interesting history lesson about an important chapter of magical history. Sorry, there's a plane passing over. And yeah, it's a pretty good book. Of course, all of these you can just find. It's basically crossing someone. It can of course just give a little hint about the various cures and hexes and spells, but it's interesting nonetheless. And it's an interesting tradition, and it's also very fun to look at folk magic from various regions and cultures, because what a region and culture is interested in is very often reflected in their folk magic. There's also a set of photographs in the middle of the book, if I can just find them. And they are quite interesting. So, yeah, you have the otter gathering water in a magical way. But you see all of these magical items on show from one of the local occult museums. So while the pictures aren't of excellent quality, they are still pretty nice. So yeah, all in all, this is a pretty good book. I have some nitpicks here and there. And if you are wondering what that sound is, it's basically a big car packing up. So yeah, I recommend this book if you are interested in English folk magic, especially West English folk magic. That would make it, what is West Country? I think it's Cornwall and around, yeah, it's Cornwall, and the areas around that. And that sort of makes create its own little place, because up until recently they were fairly remote. This also has a very good chapter discussing toad magic, which was a really big thing of English folk magic. So yeah, there's that. I'll give this book 8 out of 10, and that is my review of The Black Toad, West Country Witchcraft and Magic by Gemma Gary. Hope you have enjoyed this review. Have a great day, and blessed be.